Yeah. But,
I know, it's good.
I think every single episode starts with us going, God, I love that music.
Having a little bot behind the scenes.
Yeah. Woo! Hello. Good evening. You are listening to Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. I'm Luke.
And I'm Todd.
And with us we have Michael from Cut Hill. How you doing, mate?
Hi, good evening. How are we?
Very, very good. And even better for the awesome couple samples that are actually full fucking bottles.
I almost died on the spot when I picked up that box. This is a bit heavier than I expected it to be.
So yeah.
Well, I didn't know if the little 100 mil, 50 mil samplers would cut it for you guys and give you something to talk about a little bit longer for sure.
We'll definitely be using them for a while, I think. But
oh yeah, and I'll treat these as a birthday present. Thank you very much.
Yes, yep, impromptu done, beautiful.
You're so thoughtful. You're so thoughtful. So yes, thank you for joining us. Welcome all. And let me put up the little doobah. cuthilldistillery.com.au. Who are you?
Who are we? Wow.
What are you?
What are we? What have we done? Where have we been?
Before we get into that, you know what we're drinking. What have you got in your glass?
Well, I think I've actually got the wine cask, which is one of the ones that I'd sent through. I'll call that the OG, which is apparently a South Australian saying. The original, the first ever product we sold into SA in November 21. So some fortunate opportunity with selling malt spirits as first product, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I can a good little fill there, guys. You've measured your pour, have you? Good to see.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Half a pour there.
Yeah, that's right. Careful. Let's sit back and I'll tell you a little bit about a little storytell of a short period that we've been operating and looking to grow into the future. So bit of a serendipitous opportunity with similar networks. Our friend that big virus that went through the world and a few changes with my moving forward out of sales of wine into export land, because that all got squashed pretty quickly. And then I guess the silver lining is that these opportunities do come out of some of these other interesting situations. So got snapped up by Hill Distillery, who were at that time in kind of early to mid 2021 working out their direction, got some barrels sitting there maturing, and brought me on in October 21 as the packaging was rolling through. As Todd showed before, a bit of a gift box that we have to hand package. Takes quite a long time.
Hand make this far out.
Yeah.
You need,
just packing
need
in there
a degree to put the lid back on, I can tell you.
That's right.
Origami.
It is. It's awesome.
People are fighting through the box just to get to the bottle, which is exactly what we want. Yeah, if you want to keep anything from a big natural disaster come through, just put it in that box and store it away. It'll be safe. Don't you worry about that. So
look at that.
It is
pretty sturdy.
Impressive box.
That's some GSM right there.
Absolutely. So and thank you for the praise. So we new opportunity 2021. Packaging rolled through, got everything into the warehouse in October 21. Packaged up furiously for around 3 to 4 weeks, and then hit the market in November 21, and then started selling our liquids. And first bottle literally sold was that wine cask that you're sampling, and our growth at the moment is into around 5 to 6 staff that we're operating with. We've got some other casual and other people that can dip in and out and help us out in terms of marketing and whatnot. And we do have Lost Phoenix Spirits on the side that does explorative gin, vodkas, peated pancetta fat washed, which is something a little curious that people don't understand, and they try it and they love it. So not for the faint-hearted, nor the
vegetarian. I look forward to trying that later.
I want to dive into that a little bit later as well.
Yeah, that's
quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, here we are. We're clawing into businesses. We hope that we're getting a lot of support. To what number? You're a new business, right? So you're not parity on a year before or a decade before, like it's a brand new opportunity. But at our 1 hour south of Adelaide, High Marsh Valley, 40-acre beautiful property, we think we've just got some pretty incredible opportunity coming out of there. And in the end, your packaging could take forever to package, but if your liquid's not right, there's some big challenges too. So we're on we're on a good trajectory now. We're in some states we're not into any distributor or wholesaler model at the moment. It's all distillery direct, and that's quite interesting to manage. But we're looking at how much further we can push forward and realise what our export market or our cruise ships, airlines, what's the next bit there as well. So someone come through with a comment there, which is great.
Yeah, bit of love. There you go. Sweet Michael was a legend when I met him at the Perth Whiskey Show this year. Great whiskey and a really nice guy to boot.
I tell you what, might have been my alter ego at that point in time. But no, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. And it's come down to, I'm not going to dive deep into cliches, but we're here to build a brand. So getting out into market, flying to Perth, is that the next big opportunity for us? Well, the whole Australia and the whole world really is our opportunity. And I call it the kind of the pinky in the brain that we want to kind of take over. And we're not going to take other space as such, but we want to promote Australian whiskey out into, further abroad into the world or wherever it may end up. And I know that really Tasmania is kind of waving that baton for us in the early days and to now as well. And they've got some serious double-digit age opportunities they're getting out to market. And, we want to help to ride that wave as well. So here we are at the moment. Product in bottle, sitting in front of a computer screen.
So what was your background in spirits, in booze before Cut Hill?
Kind of all booze, really. Bit of a uni dropout straight after school. And then started working in hotels at that time when I was trying to push through uni at that point. And really just worked as a casual bar person, as probably most of us have. I would say we've got our old RSA number that's quite low. And built the way up to, myself and my wife managing a hotel at 24 and 25 years old. And then ran the Williston Hotel kind of out near the Barossa for a couple of years, and then got moved to Port Lincoln to dive with the Sharks and run another hotel over there, which was really exciting. So publican for another 6 years there, came back into pubs again, and then ended up generalist is publican, specialist is, whiskey or wine or whatnot. So then dived into Pernod Ricard, Cellar Door there at Jacobs Creek in the Barossa, and then across to Negotiants International, exporting some beautiful wines across the divide and beyond. So it's been kind of alcohol all the way through, and really enjoying it. And then trying to do uni dropout, probably wanted to prove that to myself. Just finished off some other big studies, which is great. So no doctorate, not going that far, but falling just short, which is okay.
Still studies in booze or entirely separate?
Study.
Still studying in booze or a different area?
It's an MBA. It's funny though, because when you're studying an MBA or like an agile MBA, it's about applying it to what you're doing. Yep. And I reckon the last, it would have been probably every subject I've done while I've been at Cut Hill Distillery has been based on, how are we going to achieve this when we expand? What's the opportunity? And I think my project was based on selecting the right distributor or wholesaler and what characterizes the right person or business or entity to push us forward as well. So it was relevant, but it makes you generalist HR into marketing, into corporate governance, into everything, in between. So but it's exciting. It's a great path, and you meet people who you can tell they're in hospitality already, and that's the really good part, because they're fun-loving people, and a lot of you meet people from all walks of life for sure, and we're trying to do lots more collaborations. But really, at this point, getting out to bars and trying to engage with the cold-faced workers, that's vitally what it is. And thanks so much for Chris putting that comment online. Like getting to Perth, getting to Canberra for a little market, that had some real spring in its step for some opportunity there for us as well. Into Brisbane about a month ago as well. Off to Melbourne in about 6 weeks time, I think it is, to Whiskey Abbey. There's some big things going on down there as well. So really getting out and engaging with some of these people who are selling our liquids, and that's vitally important. That's the people who are on the coal face who can kind of push it forward. And I mentioned about collaborations. We're working with I'm not sure if you've seen it online, but there's a B186 Motorsport Homage release. Did you see that one online?
I didn't see that one online. Let me jump in on the website and I'll see if I can be quick and bring it up.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's fine.
That's a cool bottle. That's a cool label.
This is really different. So this was, this is out of the box. Well, what we presume is out of the box thinking, and we want to essentially go over and above. And we have a really quite interesting network where someone was in the racing sphere and got involved with Adelaide Motorsport Festival. And it's not just Formula One. It's not just 500 cars. It's everything in between. And they had this connection, and we kind of built this concept. So on top of that, B186 Motorsport Homage is a piece of thatched carbon fibre from the BMW B186 Benetton. Yes. So it's for collectors, and it's just, it's unique. So there's a thin piece of clear you can see on top of the bottle there, and that has a piece of carbon fibre off that race car.
Really?
These are
a reason to keep the cap.
A reason to keep it. Great whiskey inside. You'll have a musket cask in there at on kind of 4.5 years. But a collector, and you're finding so many people in this space, and they might be collectors of fine wine, art, whatever it might be. But then when you find that they're beautiful collectors of something that just has something prolific inside it, such as that, or attached to it, those people certainly are around. But the people that don't get Formula One are like, what are you talking about? And that's fine. They play and they love in their own space. That's just the thing we're playing with. So watch out for a MotoGP potential release early next year as well. Esque to that one.
So have you always been a motorsport fan, or was that sort of your inspiration for getting involved in it, or how did the collab come about?
Yeah, so Tim Possingham, who is the owner and general manager of Adelaide Motorsport Festival and Adelaide Rally, he had that marvellous connection, and we were just fortunate to make that connection there. And it was literally it was just a harebrained idea to go, how can we connect the dots here? How can it make sense from the consumer? Because packaging's got to be good, liquid's got to be lovely, the sales pitch has got to make sense. And I love marketing. I say, sell me on the next best thing. I get wrapped up in it, and that's fine. Hence the sales / marketing / operations. It's kind of a combination of everything there. And we're going to see what the next thing is. And in terms of collaborations, we're working with an organisation or a couple in Adelaide that it's a bespoke label that we'll actually release in collaboration with them. We did one with Nola in Adelaide, if you know Nola Bar, New Orleans inspired. So we had their team of about 8 come to us, sit down, do a huge blend session, and they voted and fought with each other and fisticuffed and arm wrestled until the right blend came out, and it happened to be the venue manager, Jamie Fraser's. That's fair. That wasn't cursed, I'm sure. And we released a label with them, and it was fully collaborated, their own kind of eye on the front with that purpley and blue, which was fantastic. So looking, further afield to say, how else do we collaborate? And it makes sense, and it's with the right partners as well.
Yeah. So at the moment, obviously, you've. So when did you start? When did Cuck launch? During COVID?
It launched. No, it was. I guess it was post-COVID. I say that our launch date was the 1st of November, when we sold our first bottle.
Yep.
So essentially, you could say the launch was, loosely you could say it was October, because we started getting ourselves geared up. But 1st of November, we sold the first bottle. We had our trade price list sorted out. We had business cards rolled through. We were set, ready to go. We hadn't planned that as the specific launch date. And it was, it was based on a few things with dry goods rolling in, and you can appreciate the challenges with global logistics and getting products and bits and pieces in. I guess we found our niche there. So we could say that 1st of November this year is going to be birthday number 2. We'll probably be much more organised with a small team, probably for a 3rd year birthday, I think, probably next year in November 1.
But you're already up to 5, did you say?
In terms of years?
Staff?
Sorry,
5 staff. So you're up to 5 staff now, though.
Yeah, 5 staff, 5 probably about to explode to 7 or 8, which is only a couple, but big for our team. Just in terms of distillers getting on board as well, and we're always bettering the wheel, we say. So we're distilling at 4 days a week at the moment, about to go to 7, probably in the next 4 weeks, and then hoping to be that we can do some double shifts on days and get to about 12 shifts a week. And each shift can churn out one barrique of 112 Lao or 56 ABV in the barrel per shift, which is great.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're obviously aiming to have quite a bit laid down in the next, over the next 12 months. So by the time you hit your third birthday, that'll be quite a bond store.
It'll be a bond store. We're thinking the pretty number, because at the moment we've got what we've called these private barrel series. So these were distilled up the road from us, but our management of barrels, storing them in our barrel house the entire time, blending it, cutting it, using filtration systems, all those things to get these things out to market is our identity and our thumbprint. But our single malt should release in December next year. We don't have a lot when we release, but probably 12 to 18 months from that release, then we'll start having some serious volumes where, if Canada are interested, or Sri Lanka take a bit hefty lick in terms of export market, plus in Australia. I mean, we go to a lot of events, and I'm not sure, gentlemen from Perth, I've got a few questions. Oh, where can I get you in these big boxes? And I'm like, we're not in there. And if they took us and put us on every shelf, we'd probably have no stock ourselves. So we're not destitute. We don't have 10 cases. We have more than that, but we don't have a lot at this point to explode. But we will. You need that growth aspiration. Otherwise, you end up with gaps, and the last thing you need is kind of gaps in your supply as well. But we're on.
Absolutely.
We're in a good spot. It's and then it's release strategy. So stay tuned for December 2024 when we are talking about releasing that. You have core barrels, you have hero barrels. We've been forever affiliated, I guess, and I say forever for not even 2 years, but with Maxwell Mead, Maxwell Meadery, and getting re-seasoned barrels through the team there, and that's working really well. And that was our first ever launch product down in Melbourne, and was very popular at a Melbourne whiskey show that we were at, fortunately as well. So we got to springboard really quickly. But even at the wine cask level, sitting there sipping on that, we just want delicious whiskey that we think and you work on price points. So we certainly haggled over for probably a solid 24 hours to say what price point we're going to hit the market at and why. Will the consumer appreciate it? Do retail understand? Where do we sit with competitors? And I'm not going to bore people on a sunny Thursday night. I just want them to sit there and listen to the deliciousness that is our amber liquids, which we absolutely love. But it's settled in at 700ml formats across the board. We're looking at some 200ml little 3-pack releases and bits and pieces too for certain channels. But $150 starting point, and then up from there. Let's see what we appreciate and see what the consumer also likes. So it is a bit of a trial and error, as you'd know. And then you hope
definitely
expect it and understand it as well. So
So Chris chimed in with the two biggest players will generally only take stock if you're selling full pallets. And on top of that, getting deliveries in due to time slots can be very expensive due to time slots and low margins on an already low margin item. Because that's the eternal problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
People expect you to be in a Dan's, in a Liquorland, and all the big retailers, but does it actually make financial sense to be in there?
It comes at a bit of a cost to be in a Dan's.
It's interesting. I literally did some sums today. Sums take up a lot of my time, and I enjoy it. I've always been a maths guy. I play drums, and apparently people that like maths can play drums too. So whether that's a link, I don't know. But I was literally going through it, trying to work out, profitability of direct to consumer versus business to business. So if people at home don't understand that, basically you stand at cellar door and you sell products, you can sell it full rack. But if you sell it through Nola Bar or whatever it might be, you obviously sell them at a better price, and they can make margin themselves. And I think I was on a 40-60 split of 40%. Direct to consumer, 60% business to business. Your profitability, depending on how you have it spread, can be quite similar. But then when you're selling direct to consumer on a cellar door, you might spend half an hour with the consumer and sell them 1 or 2 or 3 bottles. That'd be a big sale, 3 bottles of whiskey at ergo $500. But if if a beautiful business buys it and it's retail land, they might take 6 or 12 bottles in one hit. So that's the convenience part that Chris was talking about as well. And you do lose control, and you can't price fix. So you can't come in and say you have to sell it for this price and you mustn't, but stray from the path. You're not allowed to do that, obviously. But if you can control it by, ensuring that they're getting delivered good margin by the trade price, I guess you're selling in at, and everyone's happy, and then there's good sale of stock, I kind of pitch it to say it's good for everyone from both sides of the fence, and I call it selling in and selling on. So we'll support. We'll say we're going to sell the product in, and we'll talk with with their staff on their customer. Do they need more engagement? But then going in and doing training is good, but also selling on behalf of and moving stock through. And that just says that we want to support our brand. And I guess that's maybe where we have an edge versus some big companies as well. And I don't know how everybody does it. I have been a publican and seen their side of it, and I've had some amazing, brewery reps and bits and pieces too. But if you're not front of mind, if you're not there reasonably often, you certainly can get a bit forgotten, because it's no pun intended, but it can get lost in the wash. And we want to be on that forefront. We want to make sure that people remember who we are. And right now, I think SA's probably got 10 to 12 whiskey distilleries. There's certainly a lot growing over Australia. It's going to explode very, very soon. And Cooper's Brewery doing what they're doing, which is
it certainly has already exploded. We're up over 400, probably edging on 500 distilleries now across the country.
Yep, every day seems to be another one opening somewhere.
Yeah.
So you got to.
Good for us. We get more episodes out of it.
Yes, yeah. You got to do it 4 nights a week now, boys. You got to keep up with it. So.
Nobody wants to talk to us that frequently.
No. Send the samples over, I say. Absolutely. Yeah, look, it's competitive market, but if we're all doing good things, and it's such a trust game, then it's fantastic. So, that giant Melbourne distillery that people know as Starwood have just won some global awards and doing fantastic things. And I don't shy away from mentioning other success stories, I guess, because it's going to help what we're trying to do. And we do have a little bit of export that goes to China. It's not all our eggs in one basket, and we're going to stay diverse. So as if you're buying a diverse share portfolio to make sure you're more risk averse in your investing, I look at that and say, if we can be in 10 export opportunities, all taking a little bite from what we're doing, plus Australia, plus SA, plus retail, plus direct to consumer, and really spread it out when global consolidation slows down and fuel goes up, right up, and we can't export anymore. We've got Australia hedging our bets. Do you know what I mean? So,
So the future, with you laying down your own product now, so we've got our, I guess, independent bottlings of the current releases. Then in a year or two's time, when you start releasing your own distilled spirit, how will your product range change, do you think? Will you retain the IB side and keep that as like a core range, and then have your own stuff as your more premium product? How do you see that playing out in a couple of years' time?
It's a good day for this interview. Pretty fresh in my brain, I would say. Just had some discussions and whatnot, and without divulging things that might be out of speak. I believe that looks like the plan forward, because keeping IB is really important for probably keeping us out across the land of Australian and beyond collaborations with barrels. And in the end, I say to people, if there's a single maltster in Scotland that you love and they bring out a blend and you trust that distiller or that brew house or whatever comes into your brain when you think about that whiskey label, you're probably going to trust their blend as well. And that's the thing that I like about it. So it's always been about our identity. And we, for instance, we've got a vodka that we do now. Many eyes, vodka's vodka, get that part of it, but we fingerprint it with new make spirit and some mature whiskey that we put into that bottle as well. So it's got to have something of your ethos, your fabric, and your fibre there. And that's where I think going forward, you could be independent bottler to say you get some stock in from somewhere. You might do a Tassie-esque release and then a New South Wales-esque release or something like that, where maybe you teaspoon it with your products or you put it into your own barrel for the final 3 months, and it's still IV. It's still absolutely putting out someone else's opportunity, but you might do it in some way, shape, or form. And I noticed Todd just picked up a bottle with a pig on it before. There could be something left of field that really makes sense to what we want to release in the future, and we just hope the picture of that pig piques a few interest as people sitting in bars. But so looking at single malt and then certainly independent bottling, craftsmen in terms of that, in that respect, and being strict about it, not just trying to grab the next little bit that comes through. Do you get the whiskey that's 2 year and 1 week old? It's probably going to be green bean. Not disrespecting if anyone else is doing that. I don't know if anybody is, but you've got to be really cognizant of that opportunity and how it can have the detrimental effect to your release. And really, we've got to put our best foot forward, and we think our pretty number's about 3 years for a single malt release. Everyone else can use their own number. People might say it needs to be 5. Some people might say it's 2 year, 3 month. That's fine.
We generally say it's ready when it's ready.
Yeah. So the ethos is when the barrel's ready, we'll release it. And if that means it's a slower release for us to let our products build up, so be it. That's how we're going to release.
So will you go down the route, do you think, of single barrel releases, or will you be looking at utilizing your catalog of product to create your signature single malt?
I think it's an early thought of a core and then hero and then specialty release, whatever they may be. So we know, for instance, we've got some mead casks down, which will be a little bit different. We know we've got some, Fino sherry casks that we put down. Will they be heroes or will they be essentially blended? And our whiskies, our 2 core whiskies we have now is a wine cask and a fortified. And the wine is essentially a tiny bit of tawny with then another 75% of dry red wine, tannic style casks. But then our fortified is port, tawny, and muscat blends that we put together. And we know that creating a profile is like, it's bringing the terroir of almost the vintage together. And there's a lot of whiskies that say it's released in 2010, so it actually gives a vintage year of when it was vatted. And I think, in my mind, that they're doing that so they can say, well, if you buy the 2011 release, it's probably going to be a little bit different because there was hotter summers and colder winters and whatever has changed with it. And not to expect, even with our wine cask, we're on to batch, I think, 3 now. Fortified cask batch 3 will be bottled in about 3 or 4 weeks. Serious opportunity there to try something different. You could buy separate batch codes and try them next to each other. They're going to be similar, yes, but they're not going to have exactly the same hallmarks. And people can appreciate that. So I think core and vatting together of different barrels, building up a core is absolutely marvellous. Build up Australia's whiskey reputation, everyone wins, absolutely. Talk about it collaboratively as a community, absolutely. But then having those hero barrels on the side, or future MotoGP release, what's it going to turn and burn there for those opportunities as well? And we're certainly excited for the next bit. The next 12 months is going to be tough and exciting all at the same time. Just making sure we can get everything lined up. And my hat goes off to whiskey distillers because there's a lot of troubles with it, and you've just got to overcome it. And the resilient ones just stick on, and we hope that we can all push through the weather together.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of the weather, Ian has posted in, is there any difference with a spirit run and barreled in winter compared with those in spring, summer, the interaction with wood? That's actually something that we've spoken about quite a lot. And I don't know what the climate for you guys is, but I know that in Crafty's shed
we always talk about summers.
Yeah.
So
when the storms roll in, certainly you get the creaking of the barrels. And definitely there would be a difference. How do you find that in South Australia?
Yeah, well, really good in terms of that flexing of the barrel, that I call it like the lung that kind of heaves in and out. We in the valley, we'd have 12 degrees at night in the winter and probably 16, 18 in the day, and then in the summer we certainly get those 40 plus days. Not often, because you do get some gully breezes that rip down there too. Ferments are a little bit different, a little bit wilder when it's a bit warmer as well. That can change that kind of fruity phenolic that would come out without diving too much into the tech speak. And I'm not the distiller, by the way, as you can appreciate. Have dabbled a little bit, understand it. Should probably do some more study as well. But so there's certainly a difference. So running the stills in colder weather or hot weather makes a difference. You can get sometimes you can get better yield. I think colder weather, trying to get that condenser nice and cool in terms of the amount of lal or the amount of low wine, I guess, off the wash still as well, can make a bit of a difference. Flavour wise, not so bad. Not much of a change in the interaction. But then the barreling and keeping it cold, I wouldn't necessarily store our barrels. The coldest part of Adelaide is probably Adelaide Hills, and you just get a lot slower maturing. But then people will say, well, if you're planning for a 10-year and you've got it, I don't know, in Jamestown, mid north in South Australia, in a 50 or 100 litre cask, it'd take about probably 12 months to age in colour, but the spirit will be very young and very green. So we're thinking that the 200 litre, so the barrique, 180, 220, is a really good size just in terms of the climate and the fluctuations we have. And we know we pulled a barrel out that was 4 years old. That was our Sexy Samba musket cask. We left it 69%. It was ginormous. And 100 litre barrel, we pulled out 58 litres. So it must have been stored at the top for a bit of its life before I started. I mean, you're talking exceptional. That must be 10, 15% evaporation. That Angel was pretty greedy in that respect.
That's a very tipsy Angel,
A good old...
Yeah. And actually, we didn't advertise it as cask strength. It actually came out at 71, and we thought, if it's got a 7 in front, I think it's a little bit like we've all got sensitive palates. We all like big whiskies if we're whiskey drinkers, but there's a level, right? And that's and that was kind of a scotch over. So so spirit running and then spirit aging. Spirit aging is absolutely massive, and that's why we can hold our bottle up next to a Scottish Shivers 12-year-old, and our liquid looks darker at average 4-year barrel age, and that is the difference. And it's not trickery; it's just that we know that the terroir is completely different, and I think that's why Tassie probably started, because it's probably got the closest climate to what happens in northern UK.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the weather, the environmental factors that we have here in Australia, and the range of environmental factors, I think it catches a lot of the internationals off guard when they're expecting a Scotch to be, if it's less than 10 years old, then it's going to be rubbish. It's because they don't have summers.
Correct. Yes. Although they strip off in summer at like 18 degrees, and we're like, "What are you doing?"
It's all relative.
It is all relative.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, here in Sydney, it's the start of spring, and we've had 35-degree days.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's actually quite cold tonight, though.
In my shed, it is. Yeah.
Look,
I'm not
in the Barossa Valley with the wines, with the vineyards, they get their coldest nights in spring. It's not in winter, because they have clear sky. So all the frost fans are cranking on in spring in the Barossa Valley. They get serious frost throughout there. So not they need them so much, because there's not a lot of tendrils. Probably haven't even really started just yet. We'll be pretty close to starting. So the issue you have with vines is if they're growing that little beautiful green tendril, and then frost snaps it off, it actually just stops growing the vine and completely stunts it prematurely. So that's a fun fact that no one really cares about. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
I love those little fun facts, though. They're the best bit.
You're going to nail
it. William's chimed in. You're putting in a barrel at a lower ABV to counter the ABV jump due to dry air. Now, we're going to get too technical for you.
I say tech it up. Let's put our whiskey geek hat on.
So where are you barreling at generally?
So we're barreling at 56, close enough, 55,
Oh, wow. Okay.
9. So good question there, William, for sure. They're barreling in the UK, and boys chime in whenever you want, but barreling in the UK, they might put it in at 56, and 8-10 years later, they pull it out at 51, 52, something like that. It dips down, bit of extra absorption there, just with the cool climate. The terroir, if you want to sound super whiskey geek, certainly start throwing that word around, not that they normally use it. And then in Australia, yeah, certainly start at lower to then jump up. So if you're putting in the barrel at 65, you've got higher alcohol and more chance of evaporation already. You guess you're accelerating something that can accelerate anyway. So I think you're kind of adding fuel to the fire there, no pun intended. So you've just got to be cautious that do you want it yielding out at 70%? The extraction out of the oak is going to be absolutely intense. And there's some fun fact where if you've got a first fill cask, and so that's come from a winery, might be a wet cask, absorption's really high for the white spirit going in there. There's something like 15 litres of liquid from what was in there before stuck in the oak that can get drawn out by high ABV new make spirit. And if it's 70%, you're going to draw a lot out, but you might draw out some kind of harsh tannins and other phenolics that you're not really going to want through your whiskey as well. So starting at a softer level, you're going to have to be a bit more patient maybe, but you're going to maybe just take a little bit longer in the cask at 2.5, 3 years, but get a softer kind of impartation. And it can get too woody. I'm not sure if you chaps have trialed a little 20 or 50 litre cask and left it for a little bit as just a tester, and age is extremely quick, as you know, but it's kind of all wood.
Panic mess comes to mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, chewing on a branch comes to mind.
Yeah, that's right. And it depends what you like. It really comes down to eye of the beholder, and you guess you pull out global brands and you'd be like, oh, okay, I'll pull out a Balvenie 12-year-old, which can be a bulletproof product for anyone from Scotland, and go, all right, what do I like about it, and what I want to bring to the table with our products. The biggest challenge is you're putting it down now, hoping that in 24 to 36 months minimum, it's going to be good and what the market wants. And I guess we can dive into the barrel program and just say that we're trying to work out with maybe people are going to go slightly softer on a general red wine cask. Maybe people are looking at something. There's a gentleman that came through the cellar door and he was hell-bent on Pinot cask. He said Pinot cask is the way forward. I'm like, fantastic. So we put some of those. We're going to put some of those down as well. And then bourbon cask is light and soft, and you get a lot of exposure to that charring, which is fantastic as well. And they might be recharred by local coopers too. And you can also play around with, which we might do, is doing your own charring, where you kind of do a bit of shave, or you literally get in there with a char and do it and have a little bit of fun too. And
everyone loves playing with fire.
That's right. You can't have all hero casks. Any distillery that's like, oh yeah, this is the best cask, and then the next cask is the best cask, and people literally consumers will say to me, oh, that's not a catchy ass. Like, Michael, what's your favourite? Like, if you were there serving up beautiful food from your beautiful restaurant, they'd probably ask you what your favourite meal is. Yes, it's akin to that. I don't have a favourite. They do different things for me. So wine cask is a sessioner. It's like playing poker, pop the bottle. Your mates are novice whiskey drinkers. They could probably lick into it. It's actually really, really nice and delicious. And it's like, oh, you're already into whiskey. Let's pop the fortified cask, a bit more caramel based. Let's kind of dive into this one. Oh, you like massive whiskies? Pull out our ex-mead cask, 60.2%. A big Jambo, a big liquid Lions cake. Give that a go. So you get to kind of profile it, and I relate a lot back to wine, but I used to run an experience at Pernod's Cellar Door, and the biggest takeaway people could get is they could go to the supermarket and choose which cheese to pair with the wine they had, and that was this ginormous light bulb moment to say, I've got a creamy Chardonnay tonight, I'm getting a Brie, or I've got a Riesling tonight, I'm going to get a snappy cheddar. And the educational piece, it doesn't need to be that you're talking about the phenolics and the olfactory bulb and the sensory. It doesn't need to be that. You need to relate it back to every day, and that's what we hope that we can all convey across to the consumer for sure.
Well, let's dive into what's in my glass at the moment, because it is a
segment. There's a segment called "What's in My Glass." Is this a new?
What's in my-
Oh, okay,
well,
it could be a segment.
Could be a
Oh,
segment.
there you go. There's
Now I
another
need to come up with a
Little
jingle.
You do.
In my
And you
glass.
personally sing it.
All right. So Crafty and I did the last jingle. You and I can do
Oh,
this
yeah, we
jingle.
can do that one.
Yeah, we'll put our singing voices on, and everybody else can suffer.
Crafty, guess what this is?
Perfect.
All right. So we've got the Lost Phoenix. This is a peated pancetta whiskey.
Right. I'll tell you all about it.
Which on the nose, it is smoky bacon, which is my flavour.
Yes. Yes.
Bacon. I mean, bacon makes everything
We're
better.
going to have a fight over that bottle, I think.
Well,
It's your birthday, so.
not really. It's going to stay here like all the other bottles. So
I met someone literally today on a meeting, and she said, "Oh yeah, I'm vegetarian, but I eat bacon." And I'm like, "That's the one thing I couldn't give up." You know what I mean? That's just that's my thing. So
absolutely. So how is the pancetta infused into the whiskey?
All right, let's do it. So I'll go back to, I guess, so Lost Phoenix. So www.lostphoenix.com.au is our white and explorative spirit range. So the plan with that, and the Lost Phoenix, or the Lost 500-year-old flame bird, is the High Marsh Valley where we are. So you can bump into people in Adelaide, and I've been guilty for it in the past, but now I work down there. Is you'll talk to people and they'll say, "Oh, High Marsh Valley, that's west of the city." It's like, well, no, that's High Marsh. High Marsh Valley is about 5 minutes north of Victor Harbour. So from CBD, pretty much an hour drive down there. And so Lost Phoenix, we've explored. We've got a vodka and we've got a gin. Then we've got a barrel-aged baked apple gin. So the apples were actually baked over. That's the one. The apples were baked over at our restaurant, Lost Phoenix Farm. So certainly come down for a meal and pop across to do a tasting afterwards. So they bake the apples and spices. We put them into a barrel. We released this marvelous product. Really happy with it. Then with the pancetta was another exploration into that. So the fat washing is a thing. So if anyone's dialing in and works at a cocktail bar who are really deep into infusing and flavouring, it started in the 1990s in this bar called C189 in the Big Apple in New York, and they started fat washing. So they had their George Foreman grill out the back, and they'd lay their piece of bacon rasher on it and melt the fat off and tip it into bourbon and flavour it. And then they started crisping up bacon rashers and swizzling stick into their cocktails, and as much as they could flavour it. And you can go into there's a venue going to come to me in Perth, and you can get a
Varnish bar.
Yeah, Varnish on King. Yeah, that's right. And you can get the paired whiskey with the bacon rasher, and they're all different style rasher with the thing. So I'm getting a bit hungry talking about this now.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Same here.
Anyway, so
it's
infusing, it's imparting. Sorry, don't have it. Sorry. It's imparting those beautiful flavours. So essentially, we had our friends at Merino Meats in Adelaide Central Market over smoke and under sulphur a 3 kilo chunk of pancetta for us. So it's really, we actually trialled as a tabletop with some bacon, and bacon is high meat, low fat. So it's very, very kind of porky and meat heavy and full. Whereas pancetta is kind of high fat and then that lower meat content. So it's a bit more lighter imparted. So essentially,
that is flavour.
Sorry, absolutely. Yeah.
That is flavour.
So we had Lost Phoenix Farm render all the fat off for us. We brought some beautiful port cask across to them. Get that slightly warmed up, and then I guess you kind of put the fat in there to impart the flavours. And there's a technical chemical term which would bring that flavouring across from molecule to molecule that I'm not really privy to, but essentially imparts some flavours, and then you chill that down, skim it off, and filter it. So it's not made with pancetta, we'll call it, but it's had some flavour imparted across, as a barrel would impart some flavour across to the whiskey. So is this. So then we actually sourced some local peated whiskey from someone locally in Adelaide that we don't do peat ourselves, but their peat bog's about half an hour from where we are. So it's a Fleurieu Peninsula peat bog. Bit more earthen, less kind of Orkney Islands briny and salty. And so it's got about kind of 5% peat in there for that smokiness. It's got some beautiful pork cask, so sweet pork cask, that kind of smoky peat, and then you've got that kind of, when it finishes, I kind of explain it like when Homer Simpson coats his mouth with the wax to eat that hot chili. It's kind of like that. You get this savoury, round, oily ball at the back of the palate there, and it's just marvellous. It's a food pair. It's charcuterie board on a Sunday afternoon, that whiskey with food. And the amount of people that I meet that didn't know you could pair whiskey with food now know you can pair it. Go to lots of events where they're paired as well. It's just amazing. And we did that. We did a lunch at Also on Kensington Road in Rose Park, just kind of east of the city, and we did a full like gin cocktail as you rolled through, and then paired up this meal with these beautiful whiskies, and finished off at the end with the B186 homage, which was fantastic. So yeah, that's Peter Pan Cheddar. I think, bar anything else in the venue that it's in, people should see it on shelf and be like, "What on earth is that?" And then we've essentially done it for them.
If you do, give it a go.
Yes, it's good. I'd love to pair that with breakfast.
Oh yeah, that could be my new breakfast whiskey. That's right.
Breakfast whiskey. We called it the wrong thing, didn't we? Really. You know what? If you make it, so there's a cocktail that Americans make, or it's from America, called apple butter old fashioned. Now it's not actually apple butter, but it's apple puree. So if you're making basically an old fashioned whiskey, dark demerara, sugar syrup, cocktail bitters, and then you actually put a little bit of apple puree through it. If you do it with that whiskey with the apple puree, it's kind of like the pig with the apple in its mouth. It's that kind of matrimony, and it's very, very good.
Pizza time, I reckon.
Some bacon.
It's time for second dinner.
Yep.
We should have done this. You should have done this talk at about 9 a.m.
Well, either a couple of hours earlier or tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
Missed opportunity. I love the fusion of food and alcohol. I love that so much, and that's a new technique that I haven't heard of. So what do you call it? So that was called a fat wash.
Yep, fat washing.
Yeah,
it is.
So
absolutely.
You're putting the fat and the spirit in together, and then chilling it down. The fat cools. It's imparting some flavor, and then you're skimming off the liquid and aging it at that point.
Yeah, or it's already been aged, so fully mature whiskey. This is like getting this done right at the end. And we've actually, if you get down to cellar door, if you like that kind of that kind of savouriness at the end, we've got batch 2 just bottled up, and batch 3 we've actually made a super heightened, extra kind of fatty. That's not going to be for everyone, but we're going to just release that at cellar door only with about 100 bottles, and we're going to see how that goes. So if people try this product at cellar door and go, "Wow, I'm really loving that kind of savoury ball," it's just like. Buy one of get one of these guys on the side.
What do you do with the fat after you've skimmed off the liquid? So
I think the plan was to try and use it in a way back into. It's like with our back into the cooking, I guess, in the restaurant. So we tried to do that with the barrel gin where we had.
No, we lost him for that. Hold on. There you are. You're back.
Don't hit that button again. And we'll never know. You're not to say anything about what you did with that app.
Is that like the beep button, is it? You just bleep it out. Yeah. No, so we try to use the apple back into it, but by the time we'd scraped it out, and kind of sat for a couple of days trying to learn that process. So the fat at the moment not used right now, but we want to know how we can actually use that back in there. So restaurant can actually use, nice one there, Ian.
Grease the inside of the cask with fat.
That would be one way to.
You know what?
It would.
I love the thoughts. I think Ian's on our think tank board now, really enjoying it. We can sit there and drink whiskey and talk about, because that's what it's about. It's just
black pudding scallops with a dram is ace.
Wow. Well,
I actually have never had black pudding.
Nor have I.
The idea of black pudding, that's why I've never tried it.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Yeah.
It was my father's favourite breakfast for a while there.
No. No, I don't think
It
so.
just seems wrong.
It does. It does.
Oysters, on the other hand.
Scallops. Yeah,
Garden scallops.
absolutely. Oh, fuck, I'm hungry now. God damn it.
Sorry. Apparently they do. Tasmania
So-
have the scallop pie. That's their thing, isn't it? Down in Tassie. Have you heard that?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I've
pie.
heard of it. I haven't had it. I think cooked scallops for me is
That would sound like something around Warbs Harbour.
probably. Oh, fuck,
But-
I want to go there too. Speaking of Warbs Harbour, right on my desk, there's a nice one there.
Oh, okay.
what-
I've seen that.
Yeah. It is actually it's a lovely dram.
Yeah.
I'm limiting myself. Getting back to meat and food with spirit, because I think it's not done enough. And I think
You're welcome.
one of my favorites in that vein is the Black Snake Pechuga.
Right. And it is? What is
Now,
that?
the Pechuga,
So it's an agave spirit.
yep, agave spirit. So traditionally your Pechuga. Have we got rain?
Sounds like rain.
Fuck, I've got a hole in my roof. Shit. I may have got a little bit heavy-handed with the pruner. And
Is it that size hole?
well, it's around there somewhere. It's all right. It'll drip on you first. You've got your hat, you'll be fine. So a Pechuga will traditionally have chicken. And they literally hang the chicken inside the still. And as the still's running, the vapors are going up. Steam is cooking the chicken. The fat is dripping down back into the wash, distilling and going up again. So you end up with the chicken. The fat imparts a real sort of creaminess to it, which I do think you get a bit of that creaminess from. I mean, pig fat's pretty, yeah.
Funny you talk about that. I say watch this space for something from us on that. Not saying anymore.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's get on their list. Is what
Yeah,
they're saying.
So the Black Snake Pechuga though is not using chicken. They're using kangaroo.
Wow, okay.
So it's a Pechuga-roo.
And how did it come up?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as because kangaroo is a fairly lean meat at the best of times.
Yeah, sure.
There is a creaminess to it, but not as much of.
We need to get ourselves a bottle of Pechuga, like Mexican Pechuga.
I do have one.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
We need to try. Well,
We'll try. We'll side by side them. Yeah.
But
But definitely that.
interesting.
I think those techniques are things that I love. I love hearing about and seeing something new. And the fat wash that you've used there in the Lost Phoenix peated pancetta whiskey at 50% is that really does tickle my bacon bone.
Fantastic. If anyone's up in Brisbane dialing in at all, you need to get to probably Savile Row and have a little cheeky sneak of that one that's literally on shelf there. And then also,
Char the barrel with burning pig fat. That's a good idea.
You know what? That is, we've got to, we need to get that weird space where you're doing something a little bit different. And I want to, like a marmalade barrel. I don't know if you can store marmalade in a there's a lot of money in 150 barrels, but I'd love to do something like that just for different impartation. And you can do cheese fat washing.
Cheese fat washing.
So we're gonna
that is something a bit different.
I want to play with bacon more than cheese though. Is that just?
Oh look, I've got a soft spot for both.
The blue vein cheese wash. Could add a new flavour.
It's a whole
gorgonzola, something a bit big.
That's a little bit of.
That's a bit of funk. That's a bit of funk to it.
Why are we back talking about food?
I'm hungry now.
Seriously?
Sakes. All I've got is mint.
Do you guys want to go grab yourself some food?
We might have to. Although if it is rain that's just started, it is now unlikely.
It's unlikely we're going.
So we've got
Phoenix whiskey.
Yeah, we'll just have to stick to that. Absolutely. I'm going to put that back up on the screen. Now, actually, that raises an interesting question. So you've got the two brands. You've got your Cut Hill and your Lost Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find managing two separate brands like that? And did that come about purely to have that experimental arm and not sort of dilute your more premium whiskey brand? How did that come about?
Good question. It's a good talking point as well, because I guess there's a lot of ways that you can build into business. Essentially, we didn't write a 50-page document to say this is exactly our brand plan from when we start from day one. And we've been evolving. So it made sense that Cut Hill could be a whiskey brand. Just quickly on the Cut Hill, about 5 kilometres up the hill from us, there is a beautiful dry rock wall. So dry rock wall is not made with any mortar, and that's called Cut Hill Wall, and that was built for safe passage into the area. That's why we're called Cut Hill. And it's a little bit harder to see, but this is kind of across the top here is depicting a little bit of the top stones that are capped on top of the wall. And then below, it's just really subtly, and that's going to become more pronounced as we continue marketing. Yeah, absolutely. So we're named after that. So we're about the region, rather than saying, talking about the region all the time, we can kind of keep dropping notes about the region as well. But then it's to say Cut Hill is serious whiskey, Lost Phoenix, exploration of other spirits. And we could have done Cut Hill gin, Cut Hill vodka. Would that make sense? Well, in this way, we've really been able to flex a lot more to say the reason that pancetta whiskey is under Lost Phoenix, not Cut Hill, is because it's not as serious and straightforward down the line like our Cut Hill whiskies, but it's still a very serious whiskey. It's still very flavoursome. It doesn't have jelly beans and redskins thrown in there. Do you know what I mean? So it's trying to find where that's going to play and keep earning and burning, I guess, its identity. So, for instance, we've got a coffee vodka, and then if punters quickly explain it, who are dialing in, when you make whiskey or beer, you chew up all the grain in the grist mill, and then that drops into your mash tun, and then into your fermenters, and then through your stills, essentially, when you do the spirits. And we actually went and bought 50 kilos of Costa Rican coffee beans from De Groot Coffee Roasters 15 minutes down the road at Port Elliot and threw them into the grist mill. So the whole distillery smelled like iced coffee. It was marvellous.
Nice.
It was the best it could ever smell. And then that got chewed up into the grist mill, hydrated into the mash tun, got fermented and then distilled off. So it's completely clear, but it tastes like this beautiful, nutty kind of almond husk-esque going on, and it's absolutely marvelous. Is it sweet? No, it's not liqueured. Does it have coffee essence put in there? Nope. It just, if James Bond wanted a breakfast martini dry, he would be having this with a bit of coffee-esque. And if you make it with a little bit of like squeeze of orange oil, you get this kind of Jaffa come out. So rather than being like the next coffee liqueur, which people do, and people do a marvelous job of it, this is like dry martini style. So I've got a venue in Canberra that are doing a clarified dry martini with it, and it's just absolutely marvelous. So, Lost Phoenix will keep playing like that, and that's where you're talking about the protein hanging in the still, and we've already spoken about, got that set up with our hooks ready to go. So we're going to see what that looks like, what it turns into. Obviously, that vodka got beans in it, so we can't call it whiskey, but we've thrown little 20 litres into a barrel. Let's see what it looks like after 6 months, So it'll be a barrel-aged coffee vodka for something different, and maybe the punters will like it. And that's where as you would probably find as well, Crafty, you just play around with these weird and wonderful things, and every so often something sticks and piques your interest. And a lot of businesses get built like that. You start making it for friends, or heaps of wineries start like people just mucking around at home, and then they start selling cases to friends, not bottles, and not giving them away. They're selling them, and then they're like, hey, we can make a wine business out of this. And then it evolves. And that's the amazing part. And Mr. Penfold used to walk up the road to Mr. Cooper's, and they trade Grange and Cooper's Red Label. Like, that was the thing. That's how it all started, walking up and down the Torrens, and look where they are now. It's huge.
Oh, indeed. There's a damn good question. Circle of Life. Does the local pig community get fed the spent draft? So keeping a bacon whiskey cycle going.
It could be. I should be taking notes. I'm gonna go back and watch.
That's right. This is being recorded, so
watch it.
you can watch it.
Look, our circle of life is we can reuse water going through condensers. We send our spent grain to local Wagyu farmers. We're working out other ways in terms of reticulating water and, building, do you build wetlands? Like how far do you go just in terms of what you're trying to achieve at the distillery? And it can all be pretty on the facade, but you got to make sure that you're completely sustainable. So, do we consider that everything that goes in can kind of come out in certain ways? So I was even chatting with a gentleman who does hemp packaging in Adelaide, and I'm like, if we could do hemp boxes or something like that, or work on closures, or bring our carbon footprint back, do we have to buy certain things from around the world, or can we source it all from Australia? And what does that look like just on the other end? Because in the end, if things become too expensive, and I've even had, far off export lands going, why is whiskey in Australia so expensive? It's just like it just costs a lot to produce, and power costs and transport and all these other things. And it's not getting down on that. It's just working out how you market it. And I went to Perth and I called an Uber, and we're driving along, and the Uber driver goes, Michael, what are your USPs? And I'm like, Uber drivers don't ask what unique sell points are. You don't dive deep. It's normally like, how's your day? Do you have kids? Where's the local fast food restaurant? Do you know what I mean? And we
How long have you been an Uber driver for?
Yeah, that's right. But we ended up, and I love chatting with, just the people who you meet, and we actually stopped, and he sat there for probably 5 or 10 minutes, and we just chatted some serious noise, which was great. You mean to your box, Hemcar? We just started chatting about, unique sell point and how you get out into market. And there's so many whiskey distilleries across the world, and then there's a lot in Australia that are evolving now. And how are we different? And I pitch it to say, we have a tenacity to find interesting markets, and the B186 is a left of field opportunity that we thought we could release and have some serious good time with. That Lost Phoenix Peter Pancetta is something different as well, but our route to market and how we can push through to get our route to market out there to consumers, we think is really, really important. And as I said before about growing a brand, if you just want to sell a product and make money, maybe you just sell into some big box and get on with it and let it sail at lower margins, as I think Chris mentioned before. And it might do its things completely out of your hand, and that just might be a business model that works for you. But growing that brand and that route to market to go, maybe no one's in Darwin and there's actually, head per capita, the most whiskey drinkers in Australia, for instance. So does everyone do data collection? Do you start diving into those things? And that's where the sales come into it, but the marketing comes into it. And even that study of my MBA studies is going like, you've got access to all these data points to Bureau of Statistics that you can start asking all those questions. And then you become a really considered, very strategic business model. And yes, it's about selling booze, but it's how do you sell that booze? And we could probably all comfortably walk in and go, if we had Australian whiskey for $30 a bottle, we could all sell it. Yeah, for sure. It could be in every cocktail and every bar and whatnot as well. And is there margin there? Or, how's it getting made? And you try and answer all those questions as well. And, our opportunity, there'll be certainly products that'll be going north, and our Keystone releases, which are individual casks, they're up. The last one released at $2.99, still really good value at that 60% ABV as well. Are we releasing $1,000 bottle tomorrow? Certainly not. There's got to be a case to plead, and we just hope that consumers continue to follow. And Chris and Co at Perth, if we pop back up over there and they come back and shake your hand and say hello and remember, then that's soft values converting into warm, because these guys have got our liquid on lips, and we have to have that. I'm not going to commit. Even people buying a $15 bottle of wine would often not buy it if they didn't know what it was. That's a $15 wine, not a $150 whiskey.
Absolutely.
And recommendations are a long way. And if we can be in a lot of venues, people can go, oh, I saw your product in that venue there, or I saw you at that beautiful whiskey show that was, you're involved in. We can be involved in more, and there's a cost versus outcome. We need to make sure that we cover that off. But if they give the right exposure, we've been in a few kind of spirit fests and Cellar Door and things like that in Adelaide, and that's working really well for us. but maybe we need to pop up at a simple little Fleurieu Peninsula market down where we are and make sure that we're beating that drum and waving our flag for Cut Hill.
Well, look, I'm definitely waving your flag.
Yeah, fantastic.
The Cut Hill wine cask is absolute cracker. If you're aching for some bacon, then the Lost Phoenix peated pancetta is also absolutely fantastic. You know what I want to try? I want to try that with a Long Ray's dark soda.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Fuck yes, well. I do.
Long Ray's
being one of our sponsors.
So yes, they are. But it's
disclosure.
Also really good shit.
It is good.
I just drank my last fucking bottle.
Damn.
But otherwise, I would definitely do that right.
Dang.
But I think that would work amazingly with that. I think that would work very well.
Hey,
we do.
Long Ray's do a dry ginger or a ginger beer, do they? Or
it's a dark soda. Yeah. Actually, do I?
I think they're about.
It's got the real cola. That's right. Yeah.
Just talk amongst yourselves for a moment.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves.
He's gone off to wade through the garbage or something to find the bottle. So. What I can say is that I'm really glad that we went by accident the red wine cast first and then this one, because if we went that first, we would have lost the
back.
Yeah. Oh, we would have lost this one. So
yeah,
and
you probably both do the same, where you try things into quite a specific order sometimes, really intentionally, because it's bigger or it's more ABV or it's different cask iterations as well. And it's funny, the last event I did that was in Brisbane, I think I had the wine cask, I had the B186 musket, so pretty sweet musket style, and then I had the mead cask, and then I had the peated pancetta. I had kind of four corners of the earth. It felt like they were very different. So it almost wasn't progressive. I normally have wine into fortified, into a keystone and something different. So I kind of jumped all over a little bit, and I was good to test people to push their palate out a little bit more. And I always generally take a little bit of new make spirit for them to try as well. I think that's really important. And the big whiskey.
I was like taking people on a journey. That's the first thing I say. Do you want to taste that, or do you want to go on a journey?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they'll ask for the journey every time, right?
Every time. There you go. Long Ray's dark soda. I did have one more in the fridge inside.
Oh,
thank you much for that.
Cheers, biggies. Happy birthday, Luke.
Thank you. So I have poured in some of the Lost Phoenix peated pancetta.
Fantastic. I'll let you enjoy that. I always say to consumers, I talk to them and I say, drink it how you want to drink it. And if you want to mix it, how's that going down?
That works well.
It's going down well. If you want to mix it with something,
mix it with that.
Mix it with this.
Yes, they are a sponsor, and we're very, very appreciative of that. But that stuff is just gold. I generally don't like a whiskey mixer at all.
No.
I prefer to have my whiskey straight, but on a hot day, even a cold day, I quite enjoy one of those with a dram of some form, and it just works so well. So they've actually made a fantastic product in that, the Long Ray's dark soda.
And it's not just CO2 infused to get it carbonated. They use some special technique, so it's not really burpy.
It's something to do with
is it bottle carbonated or not? No.
It's
they're probably going to kill us now, but
it's all right. If you go to our website, you can go to episode 61 from July 20 this year, or jump onto all your podcast places. We had a chat with James from Long Ray's, and he went through the carbonation process and everything. So definitely do that, because that was quite interesting. And also, while I've spent a little bit of time on our website over the last week and a half, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I'm sure there'll be a nerd out there that goes, "Oh, but you could have done it this way." Fuck off! I didn't.
Yeah.
Look, you sound pretty proud of yourself, so just keep going, Luke.
Yeah. Darwin. Talking about Darwin. Willing Distillery up in Darwin. Good insight into the challenges of aging spirit and distilling in the top end.
In the heat.
In the heat. Yeah. They've got some, like, distilling and aging is challenging at the best of times. Doing it up there where it's fucking hot all the time.
Oh man.
Just another level. So
heat
definitely
changes everywhere, I'm sure. Yeah, they'd be trying to chill down. Every part that goes to the distillery, they have to chill down. Like we actually don't chill our wort, to our fermenter. We don't even chill through a chill plate. We just let it drop in. But it goes through a pipe that goes through the concrete foundations. So it actually gets a little bit of chill anyway. So that's, in full summer, if it was a 42-degree day, we'd possibly say don't brew on that day. It'll just be a little bit too hot and active. But those guys will be pumping latex, anti-foam through their ferments and everything. That would be really hard. You'd have cooling jackets on just their fermenters solidly. Like ours do
let alone barrels that are sitting there for years.
Yeah. I reckon I'd be probably starting in hogsheads. You'd probably start at that much larger format because you get lower, as you gents would know, you get lower angel share at larger volumes as well. You can drop it down to a couple
more
of percent.
Difficult to store, though. More difficult to rack and store.
Yeah.
And all sorts of challenges. It's quite, it was very interesting having a chat with Dave from Willing. That was episode 27 back in 2022, April. That was a while ago.
Wow.
Look, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
It's been lovely chatting with you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for your questions. While I do the wrap up, if anybody wants to post a last final question, if you can type fast enough, I'll put it up on the screen. We do have a book that you can buy. We didn't write it. We have nothing to do with the actual creation of the story. We won't take credit for that. But if you want to know the history of Jim McEwen, Brooke Luddy, fascinating, absolutely fascinating story for all,
other places.
And a few others. Yep. Yeah. It is, first release. It's beautiful, thick book, lovely for the coffee table or for the whiskey table. You can get that from our website, Shooting the Shit.
It's a very easy read, and if you've ever heard Jim McEwen speak, you can sort of get in your head that he's speaking to you in a Scottish accent.
See, that's half the fun.
It is,
isn't it?
And this is how he would have sounded when he was reading this.
Yeah. And when I get really drunk, I end up Scottish. So I can imagine myself reading. Thank you all again. Thank you, Michael, for joining us and telling us all about Cut Hill and making me really want some fucking bacon right now.
Yeah, right. Basically a doctor.
All right, everyone, please do like and subscribe. Thank you, Ian, for chiming in. And there you go. Cheers, guys. Look forward to try and visit Cut Hill next time across SA. And William, thanks, Michael. Thank you all. We will be back next week, next Thursday. The event is already up on Facebook and YouTube. That's going to be a yeasty deep dive. We're talking with Mogwai, who is also another one of our sponsors. I've never spoken to him before.
I've only spoken to him on the phone, but it's going to be interesting.
It'll be interesting. It's going to be all about yeast.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be fucking fascinating. So be prepared for me to make some yeasty jokes.
Yeah, there'll be lots of yeasty jokes. Probably at Craig's expense.
Definitely at Craig's expense. Yeah. Join us next week, and we will catch us all then.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for a word from our sponsor.